If we measured advertising effectiveness in decibels, Oman would be out of competition, or rather, outside the category altogether, because here, silence is a strategy, silence is a style, and advertising here looks more like a prayer than a campaign. There is more poetry than persuasion, more incense than glaring LEDs. Welcome to a country where a billboard can look like the desert at dawn, where a marketing message travels in the scent of incense, not in a buy now slogan, where an influencer doesn't need 1 million followers to be heard. Welcome to Oman. What makes Oman different from its neighbors? In Saudi Arabia, advertising is a show of force. In the Emirates, a 3D spectacle. In Kuwait, a festival of keywords and prestige. And in Oman? In Oman, billboards don't shout. They stay quiet. And that's exactly why they stick in your mind. Instead of neon, hand-drawn calligraphy. Instead of TikTok colors, the pastel minimalism of desert mist. Here it's not the first impression that matters. It's the impression that stays for years. Oman is not Dubai. It doesn't want to be Dubai. It's a country that has consciously stepped out of the race for the biggest, the most expensive, the most viral. Its economic strategy says it clearly. Development, but with roots. Technology, but with identity. Openness, but without abandoning the past. And you can see that in the advertising. Here you do not sell through spectacle. You sell through trust, through consistency, through a discreet reminder. We are with you. We won't get in your way. But we will be here when you are ready. This is not just a style, it's a strategy. From a marketing point of view, Oman is one of the hardest and most demanding markets in the region. Why? Because aggressive advertising doesn't work. It creates distance, sometimes anger. Emotional targeting is frowned upon. People don't want to feel worked on. The language has to be clean, dignified, and balanced. Messages that are too direct are seen as a lack of manners. This is the consequence of several centuries of a civilization where people learn to live to the rhythm of the desert, not the noise of the city. In 2022, a local study by the Oman Chamber of Commerce produced surprising results. The most effective ads were those with no call-to-action slogan at all, campaigns built on traditional storytelling, for example about ancestors, regions, legends, generated 3 times higher engagement than Western ad formats. How is that possible? Because the Omani consumer does not want to feel attacked. They want to be invited. And the best invitations are the ones whispered with class. Advertising as part of spirituality. In Oman, everything starts with values. Loyalty to family, respect for elders, modesty, a sense of community, faith. Advertising cannot stand in opposition to these pillars. That's why local campaigns have to pass a double filtration. Legal, compliance with the requirements of the Ministry of Information. Social, compliance with what is considered proper. And while in the Emirates you can cut corners and risk controversy for clicks, in Oman that's marketing suicide. One inappropriate poster. And it's not just your brand that's gone. Your right to be taken seriously disappears with it. An example? In 2023, a fast food chain from Kuwait tried to enter the Omani market. The campaign: bright red background, huge burger, a made-up girl in full makeup, and the line, "Hungry? It's a sin not to eat." The reaction? Disaster. Ban from the authorities. Negative public pushback. It was seen as sacrilege and commercialization of basic need. The restaurant had to pull out within 10 days. The lesson? In Oman, you don't sell needs. You sell values, and values do not tolerate shouting. Oman as an alternative, this is not a market for everyone. But for those who understand that advertising can be an art, Oman becomes the jewel of the Arabian Peninsula. There is no room here for the cult of performance marketing, but there is room for deep, memorable presence, the kind that doesn't interrupt life, but flows with its rhythm. This episode will be a journey through a different world of marketing, a world where silence means more than a slogan, where the scent of incense attracts more strongly than a jingle, and where people don't buy what is trendy. They buy what respects tradition. In a moment, we'll see what a billboard looks like in a country that doesn't need noise, how incense is advertised, and how perfume Who really influences Omani purchasing decisions? And why in Oman? You don't have to speak to be heard. Oman, a culture of silence. Where others build skyscrapers of noise, Oman builds a wall of silence. And suddenly, it turns out that behind that wall, customers feel the safest. Imagine the streets of Dubai. Billboards like IMAX screens, LED fountains, cars wrapped in AI-generated advertising, TikTok noise, neon menus projected in augmented reality. Now the contrast, Muscat, the capital of Oman, minimalist aesthetics, modest typography, streets without a flood of banners, clean space, that's no accident. It's a deliberate choice. In the world of Arab marketing, Oman plays by completely different rules. It doesn't speed up, it doesn't raise its voice. Quite the opposite. It slows down, falls quiet, and listens. And that contrast between the digital noise of its neighbors and Oman's desert restraint is the key to understanding local advertising. The voice of the desert? Silence as cultural identity. For centuries, Oman was a land of caravans, desert silence, lonely fishermen, and valleys filled with frankincense trees. Life here moved to the rhythm of nature, not markets. With respect for the past, not the haste of the future, advertising had to fall in line. Here are the main elements of Omani silent advertising. Silence as a spiritual value. Why? In Ibadism, the dominant school of Islam in Oman, contemplation and silence are virtues. City aesthetics. There are no wild banner forests. Advertising is built into the architecture, often invisible to visitors. An example? Posters for the National Oman Vision 2040 campaign. Beige background, gold letters, no logos, just a line from the Quran. That's not a mistake. That's the aesthetics of silence. Meanwhile, across the border, Saudi Arabia. New vision, new future. The biggest event of the decade. Every government ad screams. A bank commercial? An SUV driving into the desert. A woman at the wheel. 100 slogans, dynamic cuts. United Arab Emirates. Luxury, real estate, virtual offices, the future is now. Screens in the metro, hotel holograms, drones over the beach. Bahrain and Kuwait. Louder, faster, shorter. In the style of Western fast content. And Oman? In Oman, advertising speaks in a whisper. We are with you. You can choose. We're not in a hurry. Modesty as a marketing strategy. In Omani mentality, there is a simple rule. You must not dominate, you must not disturb, you must not shine at others' expense. That's why in advertising, there are no comparisons. You don't say something is better than, you say it is in line with tradition. There is no aggression in color and form. Campaigns in pastels, kind to the eye. There is no pushy personalization, no algorithmic pressure, no buy now, you must have this. An example? Amouage, Oman's luxury perfume house. Their commercial isn't an ad, it's a poetic film. A shot of the desert, no product, no sound for the first 30 seconds. At the end, just the logo, just the name. Just Oman. The result? A brand known worldwide and at home regarded as a national treasure. Entry barriers for foreign brands? For Western and regional companies, Oman is a nightmare. Because their usual playbook doesn't work. Aggressive branding leads to rejection. Must-have slogans produce no reaction. Loud design is taken as a lack of respect. That's why brands that do best in Oman are those that put the Western marketing handbook away and learn silence. A positive example? Nestlé Oman, a campaign promoting healthy eating habits with mothers, teachers, and doctors. No celebrities, no hype, just trust and warmth. Remember, Oman is a country where advertising must not lie, must not exaggerate, must not abuse emotions. This is not just a cultural requirement, it is law. The Omani Ministry of Information runs a strict ad approval system. Ban on showing women with uncovered hair. Ban on ads featuring children in a luxury context. Ban on promoting Western lifestyle as the ideal. Obligation to translate every ad into classical Arabic, Fusha, not youth slang. Is that censorship? For Omanis, it is protection of identity. For marketers, a test of maturity. When you look at advertising in Oman, you see more than a product. You see the portrait of a nation that doesn't seek attention, only relationships. That doesn't chase wow effect, only the effect of truth. That isn't chasing likes, only alignment with its own conscience. And that is exactly why, paradoxically, in Oman, silence sells better than shouting. Because when no one is shouting, everyone leans in to hear that one sentence spoken in a whisper. How do you advertise online in a country that values privacy more than reach? In countries where privacy is a luxury, the internet becomes a gallery. In Oman, it remains a home. Closed, quiet, protected. Oman has one of the highest internet penetration rates in the region. Over 98% of people have a smartphone, and most are on social media every day. And yet, the digital presence of brands is almost invisible. Why? Because Omanis treat the internet as a private space, not a shop window. WhatsApp is not a promo channel. It's a conversation between close people. Instagram is a gallery of family moments, not a showroom for aggressive marketing. Snapchat? It works, but as a closed space, not a stage for influencers. In the UAE, Saudi, or Kuwait, you show, therefore, you are. Your story is your status. Your feed is your brand. In Oman, the more you hide, the more respect you gain. Privacy is a moral value. Sharing your life publicly is a risk. And advertising? If it is too pushy, it violates that unwritten boundary. The main digital channels in Oman: first, WhatsApp, the most powerful ad tool you are not allowed to use like an ad channel. Almost every business uses WhatsApp, but not in bulk mode. No newsletters, no bots, no spam. Communication is personalized, quiet, tuned to the receiver's rhythm. Example, a small local cafe chain sends its regulars once a week. A Quran quote and the weekend menu. No promo, no discount codes. Result? Sales up 30% in 2 months. Second, Instagram. It's fine, but the fewer selfies and the more meaning, the better. Omani feeds are often a collection of symbols, landscapes, poetry. An ad done in the Western style, big headline, model's face, link, and animation, won't fly. A successful campaign, Amouage perfumes, a single photo of a bottle on the sand, a poetic caption, no CTA. Result, viral in Oman and Saudi Arabia. Third, Facebook and TikTok, the channels that underperform. Facebook is seen as old-fashioned, used mainly by officials and B2B. TikTok, dynamic, but culturally unacceptable for most adult Omanis. Content with dancing, loud music, or even some jokes, often deleted or blocked by users themselves. Remember, reach means nothing without relationship. In Oman, you don't count clicks. You measure your level of social acceptance. If someone shares your ad in a private WhatsApp group, that is success. If a campaign ends up on public Facebook, often that's a failure, because no one wants their friends to think they've been manipulated. Here, the relationship between brand and customer looks more like a family tie than a sales contract. It's not enough to grab attention. You have to be a welcome guest. A guest who doesn't barge in, who knocks, waits, and only then speaks. When does digital work like offline? Example, a clothing company from Salalah, southern Oman, wanted to promote a new line of women's abayas. Instead of paid ads, they brought in 5 local hafizas of the Quran as ambassadors. Each had between 1 and 500 WhatsApp contacts. They received free abayas and styled photos rooted in tradition. They were asked to share their opinion, not a link. Result? Sales up 400%. 78% of customers came by recommendation via WhatsApp. The brand grew without a Facebook page. Because in Oman, local recommendation is the perfect ad. How to go online in a country that doesn't like noise. Never assume more means better. Don't spam, not even gently. Listen before you speak. Instead of advertising, tell a story that matters. Don't measure reach, measure reactions. Honest, quiet, private. Because Oman is a country that has learned one thing. Sometimes the greatest impact comes from the one who speaks the least. If you ignore these rules, you may hear from your potential customers, "Don't advertise yourself too strongly, it's not appropriate." In Omani culture, modesty is not a finishing touch to elegance. It is the foundation of everything: behavior, dress, language, and advertising. In Ibadi Islam, dominant in Oman, humility is a core principle. Public space is a shared space, not a stage. Showing off, wealth, appearance, even a product, is seen as crude. An ad that would be seen as modern in Dubai may be seen as indecent in Oman. When does advertising stop selling and start offending? In Oman, overpromotion doesn't just fail, it can destroy a brand. If you say you are the best, you will be tested. If you promise spectacular results, you will be ignored. If you use the English phrase, "must have," you lose credibility. Example: a cosmetic clinic from Bahrain ran with, "Change your life in 5 days," banned by the Omani ministry. Public criticism from local women: no license granted to operate. Why? Because Oman does not sell overnight transformations. It sells what is in tune with nature, with rhythm, with humility. What does "you are over-advertising yourself" mean? In Oman, even the way you talk about yourself must be modest. Compare two versions. "We are the market leader, and for 30 years, we have served our clients in a spirit of trust." The second one has far greater chances in Oman. Another example: the best prices, the best services, and "we understand our customers' needs and respond to them with respect." Again, version 2 is the winner. These differences are not just PR, they are survival conditions. In Oman, effective advertising doesn't persuade head-on. It suggests, it whispers, it guides. Instead of showing the product, it shows its effect on relationships. Instead of yelling "buy now," it says, "we are here when you're ready." Instead of bombarding with benefits, it tells a story about family and value. Example: Bank Muscat, a home loan campaign, a film with no voiceover, a father planting a sapling by a new house, a grandmother on the veranda, a child drawing on the wall. At the end, "we don't give you houses, we help you build them." How not to overdo it? Advertising in Oman must be aesthetic but restrained. What does that mean in practice? Ban on using red and pink in food advertising. Too aggressive. Ban on flashy animations, at odds with local aesthetics. Ban on loud audio ads in public spaces. This is not censorship. It's culture in regulation form. In Oman, you're not selling to a consumer. You are talking to a family member. You don't ask, "What do you want to buy?" You ask, "How can we help you?" Brands that understood this model. Zain, telecom operator. Instead of data bundles, an educational campaign on children's online safety. Mazoon Dairy. They don't show products. They show the story of cows and farmers in the Al Dakhiliya region. The viewer doesn't feel something is being pushed on them. They feel the brand acts with care. The cost of excess. What can happen? A ban from the regulator, Ministry of Information, public ostracism in local media, being quietly removed from WhatsApp contacts, a kind of digital exile, permanent loss of face, meaning loss of trust. In Oman, one mistake can damage a brand for years, not through hate, through silence. The lesson for advertisers? Learn the 3 rules of Omani modesty. Don't show too much. Don't speak too loudly. Don't demand attention, earn it. Because advertising in Oman works like an invitation for tea in the home of an old man in Nizwa. You don't say, "drop by." You say, "we will be waiting if you decide it's worth it." How does Oman sell what you can't see? In Oman, advertising doesn't have to speak. It just has to smell. And smell in a way you will never forget. Welcome to the land of scent. Before Oman ever had billboards, before anyone invented social media, before loyalty programs and targeted campaigns, Oman was selling its most precious commodity, fragrance. And it did it with class. No words, no slogans, just presence, atmosphere, ritual. Oman is the homeland of frankincense, the aromatic resin used in the temples of Egypt, the palaces of Rome, European churches, and 21st century luxury boutiques. In Dhofar, it is more than a product. It is a symbol, a religion, an identity, and no one advertises it directly. Instead, nighttime incense festivals are held. No logos, no branding. Frankincense is set out in clay bowls in front of shops, not to convert traffic, but to create mood. Customers don't ask about price. They ask about the tree's origin. Example? In a perfumer's shop in Salalah, there is no price list. There is a story. This tree grew by the Yemeni border. My grandfather harvested it. The scent opens slowly, like silence after prayer. Advertising? None. Sales? Record high. Why? Because here the product speaks for itself. It doesn't need to be smudged with marketing. Omani coffee, the taste of ritual, not a drink. Coffee in Oman is not a product. It is hospitality, culture, the first gesture when you meet. And that is how it's advertised. You won't find a billboard saying, "the best coffee in the country." Instead, a film showing a child pouring coffee for his grandfather, a scene where a woman invites a neighbor into a room with a bowl of dates, a Quran quote, "In hospitality, respect for Allah is revealed." This is not advertising a product, it is advertising an emotion, a ritual, a value. Remember, in Oman, other perception channels are at work. Instead of video ads, incense smoke drifting along a street. Instead of a sales slogan, silence and oud music in the background. Instead of a brand hero, an elder telling a story. Advertising is a cultural performance, an experience, a feeling that something is ours, not theirs. Example, when Ajmal Perfumes opened a boutique in Muscat, they did no outdoor campaign. They hired 4 calligraphers and 1 poet. At the entrance, bowls of frankincense burned day and night. Customers weren't greeted by a salesperson. They were greeted by scent and a single verse in Arabic. The one who smells softly stays longest in memory. Result? Cues. No discounts, no influencers, no hashtags, just the right marketing language. Scent, ritual, and respect. Oman, a world of emotional marketing, not packaging. In a world where everything has to shine, Oman invests in the invisible. Impression, gesture, symbol. It's not about selling something, it's about being remembered without words. That's why local products don't come in huge boxes, are often wrapped in handmade paper, are signed with a family name, not a brand. Oman is a state without a jingle, but with a powerful echo, because in that silence, customers hear more. What must a marketer know when advertising to the senses? Drop the CTA, let emotion be the impulse. Don't use aggressive colors, soften and harmonize. Build a scent, or a sound, or a feeling of warmth. But not just a graphic. Don't talk about function. Talk about meaning, because in Oman, people don't buy things. They buy what this thing will become in their life. You want a product to smell in your campaign? Let it really smell. You want it to move people? Place it in a family story, not in a slider. Here, advertising doesn't have to persuade. It just has to be remembered, by the heart, by the nose, by the silence. We've already seen Dubai, an arena of lights and holograms. We've seen Riyadh, a kingdom of power and slogans. We've met Bahrain and Kuwait, fast, loud, short-lived. And now Oman, a land where advertising doesn't need a megaphone to reach your ear, doesn't need neon to shine, doesn't need promotions to sell. Silence has become the loudest message on the Arabian Peninsula. Silence that doesn't exhaust you. Silence that gives you space. Silence that, paradoxically, stays in memory longer than 1 million TikTok views. Oman teaches marketers one thing. You don't have to fight for attention. You just need to earn respect. Where others are competing in creative chaos, Omanis show that the greatest strength is consistency. And the greatest investment, trust. This is a country where advertising is not a sidekick of the economy, but part of the culture. Where the scent of frankincense replaces the billboard. Where a cup of coffee served to a grandfather is a stronger message than the best primetime commercial. Where a brand doesn't sell a product but its place in the family. And that is what makes Oman unique. For some, a market that cannot be conquered. For others, the most valuable maturity test in the marketing world. Because here it's not enough to have a budget. You need humility. It's not enough to have a creative team. You need sensitivity. It's not enough to invent a slogan. You need to tell a story that smells like truth. Oman, silence that sells. Oman, advertising that feels like prayer. Oman, a market that shows the world that in the age of loud campaigns, the biggest winner is the one who speaks the least. And that's why it's worth watching how this country develops. Because one day, when we are collectively exhausted by too much noise, it might be Oman that becomes the model for a new global advertising strategy. A strategy in which respect, modesty, and silence are the most valuable currency. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next parts of our series on Arab marketing. Your support gives us the energy to show the world places others stay silent about. And if you want this series to continue, share this video with your friends. Because online, just like in Oman, it's not noise that matters. It's the relationship.